My strongest YouTube video is about Obsidian, the note-taking application, and I want to share something disturbing about the comments that is going to help you be more successful in business and get better results each day. I'm Justin Hitt from Inside Strategic Relations, where we talk about critical thinking and your ability to become an influential individual in your industry. So Obsidian is a note-taking application like Notion and WordPad and a lot of other things that basically allows you to save plain text notes on your hard drive that are pretty much universally available. The notes are formatted in Markdown. And that's about all the technical information I'm going to give you about that platform. I have 25,000 notes in there over 23 years. I haven't been using Obsidian for long, but Obsidian has somewhat of a cult following among people who want to organize information, and unfortunately, that's the big problem. Not to call it following, but the desire to organize information. So I've written articles and special reports and taken notes, done research papers, written commissioned reports for clients, and all of those pieces of information, I've organized them in one place so that I can use them as a research base to maximize my ability to work. As I've talked about in other programs, the organization of the information is based on the retrieval, not necessarily the storage, because today with artificial intelligence and better database tools and the subscription services that I use for research, I have access to an unlimited amount of data. Now that's the big problem. The desire to organize information in an environment where there's an unlimited supply of information leaves you producing notes and taking notes in an area that has little or no value. I will admit that my library, built up over 23 years, has very little value if I don't do something of value with it. What is that thing of value? Well, it has to do with outcome management. So your ability to take notes, you go to a conference, you take notes of the conference, most of the time that goes home with you and just sits in a filing cabinet. I do have notes from 2005 in a filing cabinet that I have referenced, but I extract information from it more than I reference it. So my point being is that taking the note is not the most beneficial part of processing information. The most beneficial part of processing information is the application of that information, the implementation of that information, the deriving a lesson and then putting it in action. That's the value. Now, what's surprisingly and shocking about these YouTube videos is that I do a video about my Obsidian Vault. I show them the graph view, and people salivate over it. I get new subscribers. I get people who come and watch the videos. I get exciting comments about how I've motivated them to start taking better notes. And I see they all miss the point. The point is that you want to be outcome-oriented. The value of my notes is not in creating new notes, in not connecting notes. It's not in how they're coded in the system so that I can find the notes. It's the implementation of the information in the notes, whether it's publishing an article, whether it's writing a report, whether it's doing a presentation or recording a podcast. Now you might say, well, that sounds productive because you're going to be a published author, you're going to be a thought leader, and you're going to have this opportunity to influence the marketplace and position yourself as an expert, and that's exactly what I want. And then I will tell you in a most disappointing way that that actually isn't the most valuable thing. See, the outcome is the influence, the outcome is the positioning, and just simply writing an article has little or no value. In fact, I don't even need to write the articles anymore. I can have AI write the articles, and I can just edit and clean up the articles. Then again, I don't really need to edit and clean up the articles because I can hire an editor. I'm in a financial position where I can hire staff to do this all for me. So what is the real value? Again, the real value is the influence. It is the control. It's the ability to access resources. It's the knowledge in a marketplace, not that you have, but other people have. In fact, it's probably how often other people are taking notes about what you see. See, it's your credibility. Now, if we're looking at an outcome management approach where instead of producing things, like if you're a worker in an office and you're standing on an assembly line and you're just producing widgets, yeah, the more widgets you produce, the better, but not for you. So we don't want to produce more notes. We don't want to produce more articles. We want more customers. We want more clients. We want more opportunities in a marketplace that not only we can see, but we can fulfill through the implementation of the insights and knowledge that we have. Stick with me here. I hope you have a piece of paper and you have a pen in your hand and you're taking notes, because there are 3 key fundamental elements that help us determine what the outcome is. Because you could be very efficient at producing notes and beautiful graphs and linear associations between objects in your reference database. You could be implementing the Atomic Notes and the Atomic Habits book. You could be reading books about getting things done. If you're not implementing it, you won't create the outcome. So first we must define, what do you want? What is the outcome that you want? The number one thing is the focus. It's not necessarily setting a goal, because you can set goals that you never achieve, but it's structuring your environment and positioning yourself within the world that you live so that you create certain situations and certain outcomes that reinforce your desires. Now, of course, some desires are unhealthy. If you want to get drunk all the time, I had a great time Friday night. It was very exciting. I like to get drunk all the time, and that's going to be my life. Then you're in a sitcom. It's not going to be beneficial to your health. So we want holistic elements that are, in the framework that I use, is health, wealth, and wisdom. Is what I want going to make me more healthy? Is what I want going to give me wisdom? Positioning in a marketplace, opportunity to convert what I know into outcomes. And wealth. Am I going to be able to convert this into a measurable currency? Now, money isn't everything. There are various characteristics of wealth that it would take too long to describe here, but you got to have some way to measure whether or not you're moving towards what you want or you're moving away. And that could be goal setting. And we talk about various ways to how to know what you want and how to get it. We actually have a book about that. But number 2, where's the profit? See, you're going to put in time, effort, resources. If you don't get something back that is a multiple of your inputs, see, you're planting a seed. And if that seed is put in unhealthy soil, if that seed is put within the rocky ground, that seed is not going to grow. And so you've wasted the time, energy, and effort to put the seed in the ground. And so we want an outcome. We want a harvest. So we need to define early in the interaction, what is the outcome? So for me, putting all my notes in one place took me about a week and a half, because I had notes that were text files and notes that were Word documents and notes that were in WordPerfect and notes that were in OpenOffice, notes that were in OneNote, notes that were in Evernote. And I took them all and put them in one place. And Obsidian is a good platform. I put it all in there, because the profit was being able to access these old pieces of content and to be able to build associations so that I could use machine learning, which is not a standard part of the package, but I could use machine learning to help me identify content clusters of interest and then cross-reference that with website traffic and then the analytics on different platforms for the marketing outcome of more leads and more sales. So the profit I gain from organizing these documents is more leads, and the profit I gain from more leads is more sales, using content as a persuasive tool to get other people to take action. And now I know you're saying, oh my God, Justin, that is way too complex for me to be working on this morning, but it's necessary. See, the outcomes that happen in your life, the results and the success that you have today are built on the actions you've taken every hour, every minute, for every day of your life. See, we build on the decisions we make, the people we meet, the information we gather. If all we do is gather information, we don't have the leverage opportunity of serving other people. If all we do is gather information, we don't have the value opportunity of delivering some kind of solution or offering in exchange to serve our fellow man, or to be a part of society, to connect. We don't gain influence just so people can say how smart you are. That's stroking your ego. The ego has no value. You can't take your ego to the bank. You can't strut into the bank wearing your fancy fine clothes, walk up to the front counter and say, I'd like to deposit my ego in the bank. And they're not going to, maybe that help you get a loan, but you got to pay back the loan. You need some means of profit where the resources you put in are significantly less than what you take out. Now, in my case, I've already written all these notes. I've already written these special reports. And by the way, my special reports are not in my notes repository. They're published on Amazon. They're published on different platforms, or I deliver them to my clients in a PDF format. But I've already been paid to do all that work. So in order to generate an additional value or an additional profit, I break up these large reports and put them on a membership site. I break up these reports and use them to generate new customers for consulting services. I use them to build out case studies that support my resume when I'm looking to work for a Fortune 100 company. The profit is in the investments already made, not the investments to produce in the future. So taking more notes is future work, and it may be necessary to turn existing notes into higher value or to convert information into an outcome or a service. But again, am I putting less effort into it? Am I putting enough effort into it to get some kind of result? We'll talk about that in number 3. But am I gaining some value and result? So if I was taking notes for a company who's paying me to take notes because they're building a special report that they're getting paid even more to produce, then that's great. If not, I need to implement this information. I need to use this information outside of the context of just jotting it down. And that's number 3, minimum viable product. What is the minimum viable action that I can take right now? So I've taken a note. What can I do right now to implement this information? So in the case of this podcast, you can take some notes about what we just talked about being outcome-oriented rather than action-oriented, because action-oriented works great for your employer if you're in the context of their employee, but all alone taking notes is like mental masturbation. It feels good, but there's no progress. There's no emotional interaction. It's wasted hormones. It's wasted emotional connection. And believe me, if you don't create something now, when will you create it? See, many of my podcasts are pretty much rough drafts. I've got piles of information and resources, and I write a little outline on a piece of paper, or even as small as an index card, and then I give you a podcast because I have an audience that wants podcasts on a regular basis. And then of those people who will listen to the podcast, many of them take action and raise their hand and say, hey, this was interesting, and here's how I'm implementing it in my life, and here's what I need to know to get to the next level. And then I answer those questions, which creates another podcast. So essentially, my marketing is extending my message, refining my message, focusing my message. And then I mentioned, of course, each podcast is out there in the marketplace, and it has statistics associated with it and analytics that helps me understand which podcast topics are more popular than others. And then I use that popularity to bridge people from what they're interested in into the outcomes that they desire. And ultimately, I'm providing a service which I get paid through advertising, I get paid through consulting, I get paid through it's an ecosystem. What's your ecosystem? When you learn a new piece of information, or you go to a conference, or you gain a new insight, what do you do with it? You have to do something immediately, otherwise it will just fade away. Ideas are like fish. You don't have them till you spear one and catch it. They'll just keep on going downstream. So in the case of new ideas, for example, I heard about green hydrogen yesterday, and the context of how green hydrogen can replace the use of coal in the steel manufacturing process, and how if coal is completely eliminated, that there wouldn't be any way to produce steel with current technology. Well, that's worthy of a note, because in 10 or 15 years' time, green hydrogen will be a function of environmental, reducing the carbon that goes in the atmosphere and also producing steel. Two very profitable industries. Now, I run across 10 or 15 of these ideas a week, and so I write down the ones that have value in a place where I can then, when I go look at my investments, I can then say, oh, wow, are they working on green hydrogen? Are they working on thorium reactors? Are they working on, and I can go write down the bullet point line of things that I feel will trend and be profitable in the near future. So that could be as easy as building a system for tracking key ideas. However, If I don't sit down once a month or once a quarter and I look at my investment portfolio and reallocate funds, then I'm not using that information. So can you see how we went from what do I want? I want passive income. Where's the profit? Gathering information about upcoming trends so I can stay a little bit ahead of the curve. Plus, for my newsletter, I talk about new ideas and concepts in Sustainable Wealth Secrets that I can share that information with. And then finally, what's the minimum viable product? Well, the minimum viable is to use that nugget of information as an example in this podcast, and then possibly an example in another podcast, reinforcing the idea and concept, even possibly building an audience, because I'm taking the other action of looking for companies. So I don't just take a note that green hydrogen is going to be a good idea, or that a certain type of lithium recycling is a good idea. I actually will list out all the companies that are currently doing that. And so if those companies still exist in a year and they're publicly traded, or I'm working with a venture capitalist, or I'm working with a client, I can pull that from my system and I can help with the implementation even further. Again, what is the minimum viable? So let's wrap this up. The key here is that taking notes is good. And yes, you've been conditioned to take notes from school, but if you don't review those notes, organize those notes, and then apply those notes, then you're really no better off than not taking notes in the first place. In fact, you'd probably save some time. However, if you take the additional steps to build an ecosystem around why you're taking notes in the first place, you can very often take notes to collect investment ideas to improve your passive income. Take notes to build materials that you use to position yourself as an expert in the marketplace. You could identify situations and opportunities which you then pursue in a sales or marketing funnel. There's a wide array of what can be done when you're outcome oriented rather than action oriented. Now, of course, you want the people who work for you to be action oriented so they get more stuff done. And so the money you pay them is significantly less than the money you're able to produce with the combination of all their value and services. You want to make sure that when you position in the marketplace that you can get as much value out as one of two books. That's why I wrote Establish Instant Credibility, because one or two special reports can put you in front of the right people. It won't make you a best-selling author, but the right people can hire you for opportunities. Again, outcome management. What is it that you want? Where's the profit in it? And what's the minimum viable that you can do right now? And of course, each day, if you do a little bit towards what you need and what you desire in the marketplace, and you're putting the right people in place, and you're organizing a system around that outcome, you will achieve more than you could ever imagine. You'll be seen as an expert in the marketplace. You'll have influence over other people and within your own organization. You'll be the first person people choose when it comes to promotions. And finally, you'll have a library of resources that you can return to year after year. Now, I take notes, but I also keep high-value books. I also practice the information that I gain. I test and challenge myself. There's so much more to peak performance than just simply being able to take better notes. In fact, there's Zettelkasten and Para, and there's all kinds of note-taking systems where the author is profiting by organizing the idea and presenting it out there, and then they add a back end, which is consulting services for those who are confused about how to productively implement what it is that they want. I just shared with you the 3 steps that helps you productively implement just about anything, because again, everything you do moves towards some kind of outcome. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, where we help you transform business relationships into profits. One of the fastest ways to implement information is to apply it with people. It's to research for someone. It's to collect and organize ideas for an audience. And this is what I'm doing for you right now. But if you have any questions about implementation, if you have obstacles or frustrations around implementation, please ask your questions. Visit me at www.insidestrategicrelations.com, where there's a number of free resources, including past podcasts, show notes, and a free newsletter. But you can go to the contact page and ask your questions, because one of the fastest ways to turn notes into results is to ask questions of what you know and then implement the answers as quickly as possible where you are today. Every day is a stepping stone towards where you want to be, and we're going to help you get there. Thanks for listening. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations.